I just want to say that I don't care what she referred to me as most of the time. Most of the time, I like let it all slide. I do not care. There are moments where it's almost like the universe makes me have to care. Like, there was this time where I was working at a coffee shop and I was sitting down at the counter. It was a little coffee shop, and this chick walked in, and I'm a pretty I talk a lot, but I kind of talk because I'm being friendly. And so the chick came in and she was very demanding. And I took it. I took her order, and then I stood up, and I was like double her size. I was a lot taller than her, and we both had this moment where we made eye contact, and it was like it hit me and her at the same time, like what was going on. It's like, whoa, you really are talking kind of down on me, aren't you? And I grew. And like whenever I stand up straight, but that has nothing to do with my feminine or masculine. That just kind of has to do with like dignity and integrity and self-respect. Every once in a while, because of the way that I dress, I don't expect people to think of me as a woman or a lady, because I'm not wearing ladies' outfits. I'm wearing pretty basic, if anything, gender neutral kind of like. If I was watching a video of studs the other day, which are like women that dress and act kind of like more on the masculine side. I would consider myself then, after watching that, kind of more of a tomboy. But I think that's neither here nor there. I want to say the only I don't care. The times when it suddenly every once in a while I'll get called dude, like one time too many or something, and I'll just suddenly just be like, I'm not a hair on an elephant's ass, and that kind of feeling will come over me, and I'll have to stop myself and be like, okay, what do you expect, But when it comes to the pronoun thing, the he, she, they, like, I generally like to like answer like it, if it gives me the option to not answer my gender, I'll just say neither, no option, because it really shouldn't matter if like a person's applying for something and they've got the skills to pay the bills, and who cares, why not, if you need the work, blah blah. But the they thing for me is actually not so much to do with the LGBTQ political movement as much as it is to do with kind of a spiritual thing. I remember, I know of like in Native American mythology, there's like, or not mythology, in like real life, like there's people that are called two-spirited people, and they kind of have like this, they carry with them like two spirits. And my theory is that if that person, that two-spirited person, was to go ahead and get a surgery to change or actualize or materialize that, the unseen in that, I think that the two-spirit would then leave. I really do. I think that the two-spirit is there in that body with that person, but the minute that person tries to change that body, it becomes something else. So I have identified definitely with the idea of kind of having spirit, like a masculine and a feminine, or like a light and a dark, or like even a young and an old, or I'll feel like people that I spend a lot of time with, I will kind of channel their expressions, their uniqueness. And so whenever, like, I have this pin that I got the other day that says she, they, you can call me she and they, and I really don't care. Like, I'm not trying to confuse anybody or be a part of anything. Like, if anything, my reasoning for it has nothing to do with the LGBTQ community, in the sense that this is more based on like a spiritual belief that we, like, for me, I see it as we come from a man and a woman. And so there are going to be moments where we exemplify the man and the woman that we come from, that we grow up around. And when we become more self-aware, we can practice being more or less like that. Because, like, it doesn't matter. Like, if you have a man and a woman in your life, right, grown up with a mother and a father, it could still be very different. If your father was nurturing and your mother was working, or if your father was working and your mother was nurturing, then you would definitely have a different idea of what masculine and feminine meant, because in the first sense, the father is the nurturer, and in the second sense, the mother is the nurturer. But you still had a man and a woman around. So the truth is that being nurturing has nothing to do with being a man or a woman. It just has to do with being nurturing. So I think that's kind of, it's pretty simple and straightforward, and I think that's why it can be such a moot conversation, because it seems so obvious to me. Like, of course we're going to have traits of those that we grow up around, and in individual homes, not everybody exemplifies the same qualities. Like, I for one was a firstborn daughter, and I wasn't allowed to do this. I didn't have the same freedoms, and when I was growing up, I resented it. But once I realized that it was nobody's fault, really, it was just what it was. And I remember talking to a man, an older gentleman, and this gentleman said that he had the same, that his mother favored the girls, and he was a guy in the house, and he didn't have the same type of like support as his sisters. And so just that alone, we both had mothers. Both of our mothers were there, but we both got different privileges just based on, maybe an unconscious sense of favoritism, or just, doing what we think is right. We just don't know better. And, you can't really, especially being a firstborn, you can't really give your parents too much guff about the way they raised you, because they've never been parents before. So, even at 35, they're now grandparents as well. And that's a whole new journey. I'm a new parent, and they're new grandparents. And it's just constantly being able to sometimes we get to points in our lives where we have to process what we've learned before we can start taking on new journeys and new roles. And that's very okay, and I don't know if it matters if we're ready or not. Sometimes we get thrown in, and sometimes it's just easy peasy. So I think generally the whole conversation, indulging in the conversation of the getting mad or offended about what people are calling me, like, for instance, my name, the way my name is spelled is uncommon. It's not the common way of spelling it. And sometimes I don't care. Like, I won't respond if somebody spells it the wrong way. And then sometimes I think it matters. Out of nowhere, I'm like, oh no, actually that's not the real way that actually, and I don't know what makes me think it matters and what makes me think it doesn't. But I think it just depends on the season and the day, and if I'm, for instance, if I've already told you, 500 times the spelling and you're still spelling it wrong, I don't know if I should give up and be like, oh, who cares, or if I should just keep, pushing it. If I've never met you, why would you know how to spell my name, But, and that's just a name. I mean, the pronoun thing, no matter what anybody says, people view women as like, a curvaceous, long-haired, big eyelashes, big lips, boobs, butt, and men, facial hair, six-pack, regardless of whatever surgery anybody's had done, that's what they have to go for in order to exude that specific visual. And I think it's really shallow. And I think it's also you have to be very careful, because many people are doing these surgeries, and it's hard enough going through the transitions without having everybody give them shit about it. So, what people do to themselves, it's like, you're not trying to, it's just hard to see people hurt. Nobody wants, and so this isn't about hating on anybody. This is about like healing ourselves and loving ourselves. So regardless of where anybody's coming from. No, remember, very, very rarely does anybody really know where you're coming from. Or do you know where anybody's coming from? Like, unless you've been truly studying, you know, and I've learned this in music. Like, as a musician, I've always been super perfectionist. Like, if I hit the note wrong, the whole world ends. So the performance is over. Like, everybody knows I've failed. But it took me a long time to understand that there are only a few people in a crowd that would actually look to hear the wrong notes. And those people are really well trained, you know, and that is okay. And also, it doesn't matter. Most people in a crowd are not going to notice the one wrong note. And I think that you can apply that to the way that you move through the world with insecurities. Like, most of us are not looking to devour each other's insecurities and make asses out of each other and ourselves. Like, most people are just, you know, doesn't, like, just because they're not out like making a big scene and putting on a big protest, it doesn't mean that they don't care, and it doesn't mean that they're not aware of right and wrong, and of, you know, just basic common decency. Or so just stay open-minded. You just never know who you're going to meet, and it's really tricky because, you know, this is a very visual world. Everybody's always taking pictures of themselves, looking at themselves, you know, and there's just always this visual component, and there is, believe it or not, an unseen element that is very much so required to connect within and without. And it is far beyond a lot of these labels and rules, unnecessary wastes of rules that we impose upon each other in the name of not imposing. It's so hypocritical. It's a very draining and, I think, low vibration conversation. And the only reason I ever care about it is because I genuinely think that there is a conversation, keeping the conversation open and calm about identity helps everybody to realize their own identity. If nobody can talk about anything without it being this huge emotional upset tower moment, confessional fucking thing, it's just people just talking and trying to understand, you know, it can really be a positive thing to just articulate, like, is this what I'm thinking? Because sometimes we'll have things in our heads, and then the minute we say it out of our mouth, we're like, nope, that should have stayed in the head, like, you know. And other times it's like, oh, why didn't I say something? And, like, for instance, I had this, I remember going to this performance, and this guy, he just, something about the way he performed, he had himself covered in caution tape, and he was just struggling on the ground naked. And the whole crowd just sat there watching this man drag himself across the floor and cut himself out of this caution tape. And afterwards, I went up to him and I was like, I felt so bad. Like, I wished that I had actually just, I hated watching the crowd. I highly disliked seeing the crowd watch this. Like, it's like, this isn't entertaining. Like, this, I mean, it's clearly striking a chord, but why, you know, made me want to help him and stand up in the middle of the show and like, be like, is that supposed to, and he said to me, like, that would have been okay. If I walked up and cut him out of there, it would have added to the performance. And so, you know, you never know. Some people would be like, get the fuck off the stage. You know, who do you think you are? So that's probably where I was coming from, but it really did disturb me. It was like we're all just sitting here and watching this person struggle on the ground naked. Weird. Like, why? You know, and so, yeah, there's times where it's good to speak up, and there's times where speaking up does no good at all. And even though it seems like it is, because you think you have, like, somebody's made you believe you need to say something, it's like, some of these battles are not our battles to fight, and it is not in our best interest to even give it any space in thy brain or head. Like, do not entertain. Like, no thanks. Like, seriously, take care of yourselves. Thanks for listening.